Okay, now to the final set of questions on the desertification lecture. All right, now we've got this list of choices, and your job is to listen for the 3 correct answers which answer the question. Which 3 features below are mentioned as methods to address the problem of desertification. All right, so these came pretty quickly. You had to hopefully look over each answer choice before the section started. So at the break in the middle before the multiple choice questions, hopefully you were able to look at these, and then you had some sense of what was coming. These are good examples of the difficult material they give you for the 4th listening passage on an IELTS listening test, where you have a lecture like this and you have to listen very closely and sometimes find answers very quickly. All right, now let's start with the correct answers first. Let's listen to where they came from in the passage, and then we'll go on to the incorrect answers and take a look at why they're wrong. All right, let's start with the first correct choice for this question. All right, so B was a correct answer, rotating crops. That came in the lecture from this part.
Common sense treatment of topsoil is key, and crop rotation has to be practiced.
Okay, so the professor is listing all these ways that desertification can be addressed, and she mentions this about crop rotation, the underlined part there. And this is, as you can see, just a fairly direct paraphrase. We just changed the form of the word rotation and rotating, and it's your paraphrase for the correct answer there. So hopefully you caught that one as a pretty direct paraphrase of exactly what the professor states there. All right, the second correct answer, watering plants responsibly. That came from this part of the
Responsible
lecture.
irrigation should also coincide with building terraces in hilly areas.
All right, getting this answer correct depends on your knowledge of the word irrigation. Irrigation being the watering of plants. So this needs to be done responsibly. And so that was the form of the word responsible, the adverb form in your answer choice. And in the lecture, she simply says something that's a paraphrase there when she says responsible irrigation. All right, so possibly a tough vocabulary word is something that would either allow you or prevent you from getting this answer correct. So if you know and are familiar with the word irrigation, that will help you very much to get this second answer choice for these questions, and that is letter C. Okay, then the third correct answer is planting trees strategically. Okay, strategically, okay, not just randomly, not without any order, but having a plan. That's what strategy is, to do something in a planned way, in a way that's smart, because you are anticipating problems and you are trying to think of the best way to do something. Okay, so planting trees strategically. In the lecture, we get something paraphrased there for this answer choice. When the professor says this.
Planting more trees in specifically chosen locations can also lessen environmental degradation and help to stabilize the soil.
Okay, so she says planting more trees in these specially chosen locations, these places where they're going to have the most benefit. That is a paraphrase for saying strategically planting trees. That's why F is a good answer for your third choice in this question set. Okay, now let's look at the incorrect choices. Some of them are maybe more tempting than others. Let's start at the top with letter A. Shielding plants from sunlight. Now, possibly you were tempted by A because she does say, if you look at the transcript of the lecture, she does say earlier that planting cover crops like beans and lentils. She says that this can have a positive impact on soil. Okay, but cover crops are something that cover, the earth and that give it nutrients that it needs. That this is not where she says nothing about shielding plants. Okay, cover crops do not shield plants from sunlight. So if that was tempting for you because of what she says about cover crops, that relationship of plants being shielded from the sun is not what cover crops do. Cover crops cover the land, they give it nutrients, they cover the soil, okay, but no discussion of covering plants to shield them. So A does not work. D, eliminating harmful plant life. She does mention some plants in this part of the lecture, but no type of plant life that she mentions is harmful, and definitely not a kind of plant that's so harmful that it causes desertification. Okay, so D does not work because nothing like that was mentioned in this part of the lecture. E, stopping invasive species. Now, early in this section of the lecture, she does mention the phrase invading militias. Militias are armies. She's talking about people and how some of the worst desertification occurs in areas where people are poorest and areas where people may be on the run from invading militias. Okay, militias are armies, like we talked about. Species, we're talking about species of plants or species of animals that are invasive. Okay, invasive species are ones that are not natural to a particular area. All right, they don't naturally live there. They've been brought there by people. But there's no discussion of invasive species being something that causes desertification. Even invading militias, these militias of people, these armies, they also are not mentioned as a cause of desertification. She's only discussing how this process occurs in places where people tend to be poorest. Okay, so that really doesn't have anything to do with the answers to our question here. So E does not work. The last incorrect choice, G, she talks at the end about fish. She talks about aquaculture, okay? And she's very positive about aquaculture as a way of raising fish and food that people can eat in a way that would be a new adaptation. It's an example of a new adaptation. But limiting overfishing. So overfishing is when you go and you take too many fish out of a particular region of water. Okay, so so fishermen who overfish are depleting too many fish at one time and taking too many fish out of the water at one time. She doesn't mention anything about that. Even though she does mention fish at the end of the passage, it has nothing to do with a method of preventing desertification, especially not overfishing. Okay, this aquaculture is an adaptation that she mentions, but it's not about overfishing. Okay, so G doesn't make sense as an answer to our question, as a method of preventing desertification or addressing desertification. So you can't use G as a correct answer there. B, C, and F are our correct answers for this lecture about desertification.